With that, let's get started. My name is Hai Nguyen. I'm co-founder of Affluence, the company behind Matrix. My goal for today is to help you understand the basics of Matrix and then understand and apply what's called the Eisenhower Matrix, walk you through the basics on how to prioritize your tasks, projects, and email with our system, show you basic collaboration features, and then also learn how to use Matrix in Microsoft Teams and Outlook. Matrix is a Microsoft 365 certified software for modern work, and we're also probably the most integrated system inside the Microsoft ecosystem. And then lastly, Matrix is also a Microsoft 365 security certified solution. And I'm bringing that up mostly because, so many of you, when you look at software systems, you want to make sure that something works with what you already have. And I wanted to know that Matrix does indeed integrate with everything that you already work with today. So let's start with your Matrix checklist. And so, for today, for those of you who are still getting started, hopefully, after today's webinar, today's presentation, first you learn, that you can install Matrix on all your platform. You create your first personal projects, both for yourself as well for your team, and then review what's important and urgent. And then hopefully looking forward, a week from now, that you're able to actually review your priorities with your team members, reprioritize your tasks, and then check in with your manager to ensure alignment. And then a month from now, hopefully you're able to prioritize and reprioritize both your team and organizational goals, create a habit of prioritizing your tasks and emails, and then also eliminate time wasters as well as focus on what truly is important. So Matrix is a comprehensive email priority and project management software. So what that means is we actually incorporate all of those things together into one central place. I know it's extremely hard for all of us to keep track of all the things that we do. We spend so much time in emails, right? In either Outlook or Gmail or whatever it is that you use. And then we're spending so much time in Microsoft Teams, having these conversations. And then you have so much time in meetings. And so if you think about all of these places we're spending our time, it's literally pulling us away from our work. Where's the time in doing work if we're just spending all our time on all these different platforms? So Matrix tries to bring all that together to one centralized place, and it helps at 3 different levels. At the individual level, which is for all of us, it helps you prioritize your tasks and emails. And that's the core of our software. It's just to keep you sane. And so hopefully, as you think about how Matrix may impact your work moving forward, it really is just about helping you understand, where should I spend my time right now? And so the interesting thing is, if Matrix is able to help you as an individual prioritize your tasks, what it does too, it helps you communicate those priorities to the people around you. So imagine if you have a full understanding of where you should spend your time, and then each of your coworkers are also on the same page and you understand how they're spending their time, then it actually could keep the team aligned on the key projects. Now, what's really magical about all of this is that if you use Matrix across the team over a long period of time, it actually helps create what's called a single source of truth. And so being able to understand the priorities at any point in time, which is important, but also being to understand the priorities as they evolved over time. And then lastly, being able to reprioritize or redelegate, tasks to other people, with the complete understanding that they would get the full knowledge of what's important across the organization. And so that's how Matrix works at all 3 levels. And the beauty of all this is, you don't have to start at the bottom, right? You focus on you focus on your prioritization, and then everything else falls into place. So let's talk about the fundamental concept behind Matrix. There's a famous quote attributed to former President Eisenhower: "What is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important." Now, what I really like about this quote is that it helps us understand how we can actually be pulled away from our most important task. And that if you were to look at the tasks that are truly important, it's not the one that's urgent right now. It's the one that's on the back burner that you should really be spending your time thinking about. Let me give you an example. Let's just say this morning, what did you do first? Did you check your emails? If you're like me, and I'm like the vast majority of us, we spend so much time checking our emails. And guess what? When you check your emails, which email did you look at first? Did you look at the most important email? Likely not. You look at that last email, right? Or you look at the emails where you got 6 notifications for. And so those are the ones that tend to be urgent, but not always important. And so we tend to look at the last thing in, and then we answer that first, as opposed to the most important things. And the same thing happens, in the physical office environments too. So imagine if you're working on something important, but someone keeps on knocking on your door, asking you something, guess what? You tend to respond to that person. And so we again are pulled away from our most important work. So instead of actually have a task list, what happens is that you take all these action items that you have, all these things you're supposed to do, and ask two questions. Are they important? Are they urgent? And so what happens when you do that is you end up with 4 different buckets. So the tasks that are important and urgent, those are your true high priority tasks. The tasks that are important but not urgent, those are the medium priority. The tasks that are urgent and not important are the low priority. And it's the last two that are the ones that trick people the most. People tend to get confused between the important and the urgent in the sense that they mix it and would say the tasks that are urgent but not important is medium priority, and that's not the case. And so this is something that I encourage all of you to think about as you go through your day, and that what is it that you're working on, how are you deciding what to work on. And so usually the things that are important and urgent, those are easy, right? Those are easy to know. And then the things that are low importance and low urgency, those are low priority. And so those are also easy to know. But the ones that are sort of mixed between urgency and importance are the one where, we tend to have the most time, the most trouble figuring out what to work on first. So as simple as that. Instead of having a task list, you have what's called this Eisenhower Matrix, which is a way to actually categorize information into a very, very visual form. So here's where it gets really interesting. Imagine if I asked you to take out a piece of paper, write down all these tasks that you have, and put into these 4 buckets. Then go to each of your coworkers and ask them to do the same thing. And importantly, ask your manager for them to write out the priorities that they deem important within the team. Ask your direct reports on the priorities that they have that are important that they're working on. And then, or if you work with external people, ask your clients, right? Ask your coworkers, ask your colleagues to do the same thing. And then get together and compare notes. And the most interesting thing really comes from this discussion where you're actually comparing each other's matrices and try to see if you're aligned and on the same page. And once in a while, most of the time you'll find that you guys are relatively aligned, but once in a while you find a discrepancy. And the reason for the following is that if all these priorities that we have tend to be sort of in the back of our mind, right? Like you're sitting there and you're thinking, oh, I know what's important, right? And everyone else does the exact same thing. Everyone sits there and thinks they know what's important. But what happens is when we have that disagreement, it's not explicit. So by using the Eisenhower matrix and comparing notes, you immediately surface up all these things that you didn't know, you didn't agree. And so the 4 quadrant Eisenhower matrix create an alignment because it forces you to prioritize from the beginning, but success from using per matrix is about finding the things that you disagree on. And so therefore, if you find something to be truly important, but your direct reports weren't aware of that, that's where you focus the conversation to. So I know, I emphasize this a lot because at the end of the day, people always ask, why do I need to use the Eisenhower matrix? Why should I prioritize things into these quadrants as opposed to just one last long task list? And this is the reason, which is by breaking these up into these four different, these 2 dimensions across these 4 quadrants, it actually really, really helps you focus. And so I emphasize that because even if you don't use our software, even if you never use Matrix ever again, just by incorporating this philosophy into your work, I think that you'll find a lot of ways to actually help you understand sort of what you should be focusing on at any point in time. So a couple of tips to shortcut your success as you think about Matrix moving forward. If you're a manager, then think about creating a matrix for each of your for your team staff meetings. And so keeping your team aligned is so powerful and important that it deserves its own matrix. If you're managing multiple sites or locations, then create a matrix for each of those sites or locations. So then you have a different sense of what are the priorities, for my manufacturing plant in location A versus location B, or initiative A versus initiative B. One of the valuable things in Party Matrix is the ability to create templates. And so when you have a series of tasks in a matrix, and let's just say, whenever you onboard a customer or a client or an employee, you have 15 things you have to do. But of these, 5 are very important and urgent. And so then you can actually build these templates in Party Matrix using the quadrants, save as a template. So then whenever you onboard a new customer or a new employee, you actually just launch from that template instead. If you're a business owner, create a project for each of your departments. It's actually one of the biggest challenges that someone has around understanding these diverse set of priorities is that they have no idea what everyone else is working on. And so with Matrix, it's as simple as creating a project for each of your other departments. And so being able to go in and see, oh, what's marketing working on? What's operations working on? What are my sales pipeline like? And it's actually very valuable. And then lastly, if you're an individual contributor, create a project for your goals. I can't emphasize that enough, which is, the success of the individual is actually the most important part. And so for you to be successful, our goal is to make sure that Matrix helps you hone in on the things that are important to you. So that's why using Matrix to meet your goals is actually very core to what we want to do here. And so I want to mention that we actually have webinars on different topics, and then the webinars are located on our website, affluence.com/webinars. So if you want to watch any of the previous recording, you can go there. And of course, you can always sign up for the live training like this. Now with that, let's actually jump into the product and show you how to put this into practice. Okay, so here I have my Matrix open. So you should be able to see my screen with my Matrix software open here. And let me give you a sense of the structure of Matrix. So on the left-hand side here, you have your list of projects. And so you can think of a project as its own set of matrix of quadrants, right? So each of these is a matrix. So for example, I have a project called Goals for 2025. I have a project called My Personal Priorities, weekly staff meeting, and so on. And so when I select a project, then I have the 4 quadrants. And so as you can see, the quadrant names are high priority, medium priority, low priority, and inbox. So what is the inbox? The inbox is sort of my catch-all. And so of course I can create tasks anywhere, but sometimes I don't know where things fit in yet. So what I do is I would create a task in the inbox. So let's start there. So I click on this add item. I would say follow up with webinar participants. Okay, so obviously this is something that I have to do. So I have to follow up with all of you. But with Matrix, one of the things I can do is actually I can use natural language to set the due date for me. So I can go ahead and say due tomorrow at 2 p.m. and I'll press enter. Okay, and so when I do, what it does is Matrix will create a task for me. Now, one nice thing about this, using this as well, is that I can actually continue to create more and more tasks very, very rapidly just by creating the task, press enter, creating a task, press enter, and I can say, something due today, something due tomorrow, something due in 2 weeks, something due in 3 hours or 5 months, etc. And so Matrix let me capture all of these tasks as quickly as possible. And here's the thing, after I created that task, I can click on this and it opens what's called the item details. And this is where I can add additional context if needed. And so as you can see, I say due tomorrow 2 p.m. Matrix uses natural language to interpret that. So it sets me the due date for tomorrow at 2 p.m. my local time. So that if you're using Matrix in a different time zone, well, guess what? It'll do 2 p.m. in your time zone. And so that's actually a very powerful way to capture the due dates. Now, the reason why this feature is so important in Matrix is because due dates are extremely important. And so it's actually really interesting because, I've met and talked to a lot of people who don't like setting due dates. And that's just the way they work. They're like, you know what? I don't want due dates to constrain me on what it is I have to do. Now, what's really interesting is that if you want to track tasks by importance and urgency, but you don't know the due dates, then it's very, very difficult, right? And so, my general recommendation when you use Matrix or any software to manage your tasks and priorities is set a due date, even if it's just a placeholder. And the reason is it allows you to have it on your calendar so you can see it and so that you know it's coming, and then you can change the due date as needed. Now, on the right-hand side, in my own details, I can do a lot more than set due dates. What I can do is I can star a task. So if I star a task, it pushes to the very top of the list, right? And so imagine within each quadrant, I might have, if I have 5 tasks in each quadrant, it's not too bad. But if I have 50 tasks in each quadrant, then suddenly, within the high priority tasks themselves, I might have tasks that belong to the very top. And so that's what starring does. It pushes it to the very top of each quadrant. And then below that, I have the ability to add icons, which is a way to visualize, add another visualization layer to the task that I have. Then later, I can sort by icons, I can filter by icons, and so on. Now, next to due dates, I have what's called reminders. And so reminders is actually different from due dates for a couple of different reasons. Let's just say if you have to work on taxes, right? And so taxes is due on April 15th. And so when you wait until April 15th to work on it, guess what? You're not going to do all of that because you have all these things you have to gather and so forth. And so what happens is that by using reminders, it actually triggers those a reminder to remind you to work on the task before the due date occurs. And so when you think about how you prioritize your time, first, you want to make sure that you have it on your calendar, but then second, you want to make sure that it's top of mind. Let me give you an example. One of the biggest problems that we all face is we would, get an email, like a sales email or something like that. And then guess what? They follow up and then they follow up and then they follow up, right? And so it's something that you don't even care about, but you get so many follow up that you end up opening the email or you end up thinking about it. And it works because it brings it to top of mind. The way our brain works is that you might have something very important, but if you're giving one reminder, you're going to forget about it, right? And so by actually creating these recurring reminders, you ensure that you actually are aware of it and that it becomes top of mind and that you actually eventually work on it. And so what I like to do is I like to set recurring reminders in Matrix for my most important task. So if you click on this reminder here, you have a couple of options right off the bat, but you can also click on the calendar and set your own custom reminder. But what I'd like to do in Matrix is actually I like to go down here in the comment section and I would say remind me daily. And so again, Matrix uses what's called natural language to interpret that and then set me my daily recurring reminders. So when you type that and it's called a command, it actually when you see it turn green, it means our system interpreted it in some ways. And so now, as you can see, by doing that, it actually set a daily recurring reminder for me tomorrow within 23 hours to work on this task, and it'll keep on reminding me every single day until I get that done. So that's how you set due dates. That's how you set reminders. And then with Matrix, there's a couple of other things you can do. When you start with Matrix, my general philosophy is you should have a project for personal task. But then sometimes you actually want to be able to delegate those tasks to other people. And that's what the owner box is for. You can just click on this button and assign to somebody else. And now somebody else is responsible with the task, but I'm a follower. So if you're a manager and you create tasks and you assign to other people, you are a follower on all of those tasks. And the reason why you want to be follower is so that when those tasks gets updated, right, either the due date triggers or there's progress made, then you actually would get a notification to know that it's been worked on. Down below that, you have the chat. And so you saw how I typed in the command here, but it's also a place for you to have a conversation with other people. But it also serves as a complete history and record of all the changes within this task. When you use Matrix for a few basic tasks, the chat is not so important. But when you collaborate with others, or when you have a task that spans across months or years, the chat section is very valuable because it actually, serves as a retention of knowledge on everything that's happened in the past, because you can add notes there, you can add comments, even if you use the task for yourself. But if you work with other people, then it actually serves as a place to have a conversation. So, one of the challenges that you have with something like Microsoft Teams is that you might have a conversation with somebody, but you're talking about so many different topics, right? It's never focused on one thing. And so you're talking about 15 different things. And so then later, when you want to go back and find out exactly what you talked about within the context of a particular task, it's impossible. And so by using the chat section within the item, you can have that conversation within the context of this task. The other thing is later on, when I invite another people, and so let's say I go here and I invite a third person, 3 months later, they can look at the history of that exact conversation and have the full context and understanding of all the decisions we've ever made. In the notes section, you can create subtasks. Party Matrix has what's called Fill with AI, which actually create a checklist for you. So then you can go and check the subtask around this particular task. And then the resources section is where you can attach files, documents, links, and so forth. So when we talk about resources, let me give you a couple of things that belongs in resources. And the most important thing in Party Matrix is actually emails. And so let me now switch context and show you our Outlook. And so let's just say if you use Microsoft Outlook and you get an email, and let's say that email is important, right? But you can't answer it now. So what do? If you're like the vast majority of people, you flag the email. Sometimes you star it. Sometimes you keep it as unread, hoping that you'll get back to it. If you have just 5 unread emails, 5 flag emails, not a big deal, easy to spot. But if you have 50 flag emails, then suddenly you have so many flag emails, you're not able to get to them. And so this is a challenge I face all the time. I get a lot of emails every single day. So one of the things I can do with Proto Matrix is the following. I can click on this apps, and then I can make sure, if you don't have this already, make sure you click on add apps, and you add what's called Proto Matrix, turn emails into task. And so this is our extension for Outlook. When you click on that option, you get two options. You get two choices. You get to open Proto Matrix or prioritize email. I'll go ahead and choose prioritize email. It opens my Proto Matrix for Outlook extension. And what I can do is actually I can go to here, click on my personal priorities. I can choose what quadrant it goes in. So now let's just say this email is important, urgent. So I put in quadrant 1. I can keep it assigned to myself or I can assign to my coworker. I can actually go ahead and set the due date for the 31st. And then I click capture email. And now what Proto Matrix has done is I've taken this email, I've converted it into a task in Proto Matrix, I've prioritized it into the appropriate quadrants, I even assign it to the appropriate person, and then I have a due date associated with it. And then if needed, I can set a recurring reminder. So for me, I actually get a lot of emails that I sort of have to put on the back burner and I need to respond to in a week or 2 or even a month. And so by doing this, I'm able to remember to respond to this email and follow up. And that email is uploaded in the resources section. So that's an example of how we use resources. And so when my coworker looks at this particular task, she can go click on resources, see the original email, open the email file, see all the attachments, and even respond to the email directly from there. And so that's why Proto Matrix is so useful when it comes to email prioritization, because you're not flagging it, you're putting it into the appropriate context. And then let's just say if I have an email, but it belongs in an existing task, right? So let's just say, I work with a particular client and there's a contract that's going back and forth. They send a new follow-up email. What I can do is instead of creating a new task, I can actually go open Proto Matrix again. Instead of actually prioritizing that email, I can search for the existing task and then I can attach that email to an existing task. Again, what this does is it creates one centralized place for me to prioritize all my important work. I know many of you have so many important emails that you're getting every single day, and I really want to emphasize this feature because this is probably the number one reason why a customer comes to Proto Matrix, just to have a better control on all the emails that they have at a personal level, but also triaging those emails to their coworkers. Now, if I go back to my Proto Matrix, you see how that email was actually created here. It's in this project. I can click on this email. I can go to the chat and I can comment on it. I can go to the notes. The content of the emails here. And again, that email file is open, is attached. I can click on this to open it. One thing that's really useful here is that I can actually have so many different types of resources in one centralized place. So if I assign this to Eugenia, she can go and say, oh, hey, by the way, this is my proposed presentation. And so she can attach to the resources section the Word document or a link to OneDrive or SharePoint or Dropbox or whatever it is that you have. And it's all in one centralized place. And as you can imagine, when you have so many things that's going on with one particular email that you have to respond to, and all the internal work that you have without creating a threaded conversation in Outlook with 50 emails in it. Instead, you have one centralized place where you have all the communication. Now, what if you don't use Outlook? Well, Protomatrix actually also works with any email platform. And the way to do that is use what's called the secret inbox address. So if you go to the inbox here, you can copy what's called your secret inbox address. Every single one of you have a unique has a unique email address. And so when you click on this right here, you get the secret inbox address. So the way to do it is you take that address and you save it as a contact on your phone as well as in your email clients. So as an example for me, I'm on Apple phone and I don't use Outlook, I use Apple Mail. So if I get an important email, I'm not going to go and open up my computer to prioritize that email. Instead, all I have to do is forward the email into Promatrix. So let me give an example right here. Now I have Gmail open. Let's just say I get an email that's important. What I just do is I just click forward, and then I save that inbox address as a contact. And so I simply type that inbox address here, and then guess what I can even do? I can say due tomorrow, remind me weekly. And when I click send into Promatrix, it takes that email, creates a task, set a due date, and remind me on a weekly basis to make sure that I remember to respond to that email. And so what Promatrix does then is it creates it in this inbox. And so as you can imagine the inbox as a capture of all the tasks that you have that do not belong in a project yet. Once you have that task that's in the inbox, you can just select that task and then simply move it to an appropriate project if needed. And so that's how Protomatrix works in terms of working with any other email platform. And then not only that, every single project has its own inbox address as well. Now, what happens when you use Protomatrix with other people is that you can, when you delegate tasks to people, one of the things you do is you actually get these various notifications up here. And so when you use Protomatrix, the same thing happens, which is if you have a lot of different tasks that comes at different time or different due dates and so forth, then keep an eye out on these menu that's right above your projects, and it'll tells you whether you got new assignments from other people, so someone assigned you a task, or if someone mentioned you, or if you have things that are due today or this week and so forth. And so you can simply click on here to see the actual tasks that you have across all of your Protomatrix. So let's go back to this project for 1 second, and let me show you a couple other things you can do in Protomatrix. First, when you create a task in a quadrant, one of the important features that you can learn, or that is in Protomatrix itself, is the ability to reprioritize really quickly. Simply grab an item and drag it. And so what happens is when you drag an item, so essentially the star items here cannot be dragged, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. I can actually just drag items back and forth, allowing me to reprioritize the task. Now, when you have a lot of tasks within a matrix, one thing that's helpful is for you to recenter or change the quadrant size. And so when I start my day and I'm working on a project, I can just change my quadrant size like this, so I can just focus on the task in quadrant 1. Now, one thing you can do in Protomatrix as well is actually to switch views. So we talk about the quadrants as being very important, but within the matrix view itself, if you go to the very top here, you actually have multiple options. You can go to the list view, and it shows you all the tasks that you have, but in list format, allowing you to sort it. So sort of like an Excel document that you can sort. And then you can also go to what's called the Kanban view. And so the Kanban view lets you see the tasks that are in progress, the tasks you still have to do, and the tasks that are done. So if you're a project manager and you have a project, right, and you create a project, a matrix, and that matrix lists the 50 things you have to do for a particular initiative, simply by going to the Kanban view, you can get a complete picture on everything that is left on the table everything that's being worked on right now and everything that's been done. And you can simply take a screenshot of this, post it in your presentation, and you're good. You'll be able to capture all that information. If you go to calendar view, any task that has a due date would show up here, and I can actually just work on these tasks directly from here. You see how I can select my task? And if I need to, I can actually change the due date just by dragging and dropping. And again, Party Matrix keeps a record of all of these changes. So if I make a mistake or if people disagree with me, we can actually talk about that. Then you have what's called the Kanban view. I'm sorry, the timeline Gantt chart view. So the difference between a calendar view and a timeline view is that the calendar view is good for tasks that are due within a week or a month, but it's not so great for seeing things that are due 3 months out, 6 months out, or even next year, right? And so the timeline view gives me a complete perspective, but across much longer term horizon. So as you can see, I can zoom out and I can see tasks all the way in 2026, 2027, 2028. And so when you are a project manager, or if you're thinking very long-term horizon, even for your own personal goals, Party Matrix gives you those different perspectives. And from here, you can actually build dependencies for these tasks, again, using the resources section, and you can actually link items, different items in Party Matrix together, and then you can say that these items are blocked by, or blocks, or caused by, or causes other items, allowing you to build these Gantt chart views with dependencies automatically. Now, what happens if you use Protomatrix and you need to report the status of things to other people? We actually have very, very powerful reporting tools. Let me show you one of them. So here, when I go back to the list view, I can click on this option here and I can choose select all, and then I can choose share, and then email items. And what Protomatrix does is Protomatrix actually goes and integrate with your Outlook and actually build the email report for you. So as you can see, when I do that, Protomatrix will generate this email report that I can send to my client. So imagine if you have a project and then that you created to manage the tasks you have for a particular customer, and the customer asks, hey, by the way, what's the status of my task, right? You can simply go to the list view, select the task that you need, generate the email report, and you can send it to people. The same thing applies to your executives or other people that you work with. Now, what if you want to send a report of the task that you finish? Well, again, you simply go to this filter. Now, Matrix filter system actually shows you, can actually generate all sorts of reports for you. And so here I can choose show me all the finished items. I can choose all the finished item in quadrant 1 or quadrant 2 or quadrant 3, or again, all quadrants. And then I can choose even the item assigned to specific people. And then what I do is, again, I can simply select the task that I need, and then I can go to share and then generate that email report or print it or export as CSV or compute billable hours. And so with Matrix, you can actually set how much time you spent on every single task, and they will to actually aggregate all that together and help you generate a report for each of those work. So this multi-select feature is extremely powerful. One of the things I like about using it is if I need to mass delegate. So if I need to delegate a bunch of tasks from one person to another person, because maybe someone is on leave or someone is on vacation and I need someone else to take over the job, I can simply go to here, select all, and again, edit, and then change owner, and able to mass delegate a whole bunch of tasks to somebody else. And that's everything within one project. Now, let me show you a little bit more around how these projects work. So let's create a project. And so if you click on project here, you can choose create project. So if you choose blank project, then you can actually just simply type in the name of the project, and then you can actually decide, what basic template that you want. You can always just leave on basic Party Matrix, which is the Eisenhower Matrix, and then you can choose a color code, okay? So that's a simple way to create a basic project. But if you go back to here, there's a couple of other things you can do. You can choose public templates. And so here at Party Matrix, we've generated something like 1,000 different templates for you to use for free. And essentially, it's just different ways to use the 4 quadrants and different tasks that associate with them. As an example, you can choose something called the 30, 60, 90 day. So if you're a manager, every single quarter, so April's coming up, right? Simply go to public templates, create a project called 30, 60, 90 day that lets you plan Q2 2025. And so then you can say, these are the things I want to do this month, this next month, and the month after. And every single quarter, you simply create one of those projects. And so if you choose this template, you can actually press use template here, and Matrix will create all of these tasks for you. And as you can see, what happens is that the quadrant names are changed. So Matrix gives you complete customization on both the quadrant colors as well as the quadrant names here to make it work for your specific use case. You can also save your own templates. And when you save your templates, it gets shared across your whole organization. And so it allows you to actually choose one of the existing template here, such as employee onboarding or client onboarding. And Matrix will actually automatically create all those tasks for you. And all you have to do is choose the start date. So let me give you an example. Let's just say to onboard a client and you have 30 things you have to do, and you have to do something on day 1, day 5, day 10. You set all those due dates, you save as a template. When you launch it from Matrix and you choose the start date to be April 1st, guess what? All those due dates get automatically created and automatically propagated forward for you. Very powerful tool if you have a lot of repeating work. And then I can also choose create with AI. And really, this is just a way to expedite the creation of tasks. So all you have to do is type in a goal, and Matrix will go and generate all the tasks associated with that goal. So as an example, maybe you want to improve your manufacturing process or improve a pipeline by 30% or whatever. You simply type that goal in here, press next, and Matrix will generate all the tasks associated with that, along with all the potential due dates, and then you can pick and choose what you really care about. And then lastly, Matrix has very powerful integrations into CSV. So if you take a project in Matrix, you can export the entire project as a CSV file, so you can open in Excel. You can look at the effort hours, you can look at due dates, and so forth. You can build whatever things that you do in Excel. You know, people are so proficient at Excel that you can do pivot tables on top of all the Matrix data. But what happens too is that you can actually generate these Excel templates. So here's an example that you can actually build your own Excel template, and you can import one of these Excel templates directly into Matrix, and it'll create all these tasks for you, along with all the due dates, along with what quadrant it goes in, and even the icons as well. And so as you can see, all you need is row 1 here, which is the name, but then you can add also what the order that they're in, the due dates, and so forth. And so Matrix gives you this really powerful flexibility to be able to sort of communicate back and forth between an Excel file as well as Matrix file. Really good for reporting reasons. So now let's go back to Matrix and take a look at a couple of other things. So here I'll go ahead and choose another project called Weekly Staff Meeting. So one of the recommendations I have for you is to create a project for your staff meetings. And so whether or not you're the manager, or whether or not you're direct reports, or whether or not you're an executive managing multiple teams, just having a project for your team gives everyone sort of a sense of where everyone is today, right? And so when you create a project for the staff meeting, what happens is that when you have that meeting, instead of just having a free-for-all conversation where people will end up just talking about whatever's top of mind, you actually have a structure on what are the things that are truly important that we have to talk about. And so my recommendation is that create this project, then you can leave the quadrant name the same as needed. But then on the right-hand side here, when you select a project, you have what's called the project details. And then you can actually click on this plus and invite the appropriate people. So the way permissions work in Matrix is the following. If you create a project, initially it's just you, so no one else can see it. But you can invite people, and if you invite people, then they get to see all the tasks within it. And so if you have a team of 5, invite your 5 team members into the project. And so when you have that staff meeting, you just project this on the big screen, and everyone can look at it and see the priorities for the entire team. Then you can focus your conversation on the things in quadrant 1, and then the quadrant 2, and then quadrant 3 if needed. And what that does is it takes away wasted time talking about things that are not important, right? And so, let me give an example. When you have a meeting, the biggest problem is that people will go and talk about things that aren't truly important. And the reason is typically It's up because it's top of mind. If someone sent them a message an hour before the staff meeting or the team meeting, guess what? They're going to think about that and they're going to bring that up. Is it the most important? Probably not. If the most important task has not been mentioned for 3 weeks, people continue to forget about it. And so by adding this structure to your meeting, you can ensure that the most important tasks are there and that it's top of mind and that you're looking at it. Here's another thing that's not so obvious. If you have a major disagreement because you're using Protomatrix and you have these priority sets and people are disagreeing on the priorities, it means you're using Protomatrix correctly. I can't emphasize that enough. People think that having a meeting where everyone agrees on everything and no one sort of disagree on anything is good. And my take is that maybe that's not so great because maybe people think they're aligned, but they're not really aligned. And so by actually explicitly writing out the priorities, you bring up this amazing opportunity to engage in a really useful and productive conversation around where we should be spending our time. My take is doing the doing the right things right is far more important than doing the wrong things right. And in fact, doing the wrong things right might be worse than doing nothing at all. And so I want to emphasize that. So when you think about Matrix, by putting down your priorities and telling people where you're spending your time and making sure you understand where everyone else is spending their time is all about identifying those right things that you want to do. So now on the right-hand side, as you can see, you can change the quadrant name. You can change the color if needed. So the colors don't actually affect anything in Protomatrix, but it's a good way to organize your projects, right? And so here, as you can see in my demo account, I have maybe 10 or 15 projects here. In my actual work account, I have more than 300 projects. And so the color coding, as well as all these other things that I add to the project, such as starring a project or pinning a project. That's just a way for me to stay organized. And so when I star a project, it actually pops at the top of the list here. So as you can see, when I look at my list, these are all my projects, but these are my star projects. So when you star something, it's star for everybody. And so it creates a different category. But then you can pin a project. And when you pin a project, it's just for you. And so what happens is that if you use Matrix, my recommendation is don't be scared. Don't be scared of creating projects. So create the projects that you need to help you stay organized, pin the ones that are most important, start the ones that's important for the team, and then just have the rest sort of be there, when you need them. Now, what happens if you have a lot of projects? And so Protomatrix actually has what's called global view. So earlier I showed you how you can access, the list view and so forth. Well, guess what? I can do the same thing at the global level. So for example, if I go to calendar here, this is my global calendar. So the global calendar shows me everything I have across all of my Protomatrix. And so this is not just a calendar for one project, it's a calendar for all projects. And I can click on this project option and choose what project I want to be included in this global calendar view. I can click on this filter option too, and I can even choose to show the calendar for specific quadrants, right? So I can say, show me everything in quadrant 1. These are my important and urgent tasks. And so now I have a calendar view of all tasks across all of my projects that are important and urgent. And then I can even choose tasks that are assigned to me or specific coworkers. So an example here is if you are an individual contributor, then of course choosing yourself is important. But if you're a manager, you're assigning a lot of tasks to different people. So then instead of actually just choosing for yourself, you can actually go through the various folks that you work with and see what are their important urgent tasks over the coming weeks, over the coming months. Then I can go to what's called the Gantt chart view. And again, it's the same information, but letting me see for years to come or months to come or quarters to come, what are the things that's on everyone's plate. And so as you can see, this view will take a long time to load because there's a lot of information. And so, but I can zoom out. Now I can see all the tasks across all my projects, again, across multiple months or multiple years. And then I have what's called the search view. The search view is what's called the master view, which gives you access to all tasks across all projects, but you can actually combine this with filters as well as search. So you can search for specific tasks. You can actually group projects together And then you can choose and ask a simple question like, what did I work on last quarter? So when you go to here, you can choose all the things you finish, assign to yourself, and now you can see how Matrix is filtering all of this automatically. And then you can choose the date that you want to filter for. And now suddenly I have a list of all the things that I've done. And then I simply go to this multi-selection view, I select all, and then I generate an email report. And now I have a nice email report with all the tasks that I have that I finished over the past quarter. I can copy and paste this into my performance dashboard if needed. So if you ever have spent time writing down all the things you've accomplished in order to put into your workday dashboard in order to, get your promotion or just, do your performance review and how much time it takes you to do that with Matrix, I literally can do it within 5 clicks, and it takes me seconds to generate the entire report of everything I've worked on, and I can just copy and paste. And then similarly, you can see the work accomplished by your coworkers or by the people you delegate tasks to directly from this view. So the search view or the master view is an extremely powerful tool. And then let's just say if I'm going to go on vacation and I need to reassign my task to somebody else, again, I can choose the tasks that are unfinished, and then I can go here. I can choose the selection. I can select specific tasks, or I can sort by due date. And then from there, I just choose edit and delegate to somebody else, or again, export it as CSV or compute billable hours as needed. And then if you're a manager, one of the things that's really valuable about Matrix is being able to understand what your coworkers are working on, especially the people you work with directly. So there's something called the one-on-one view. And if you go to the one-on-one view, you can select any of the people that you work with, and Matrix will show you all the tasks you have in common with that person across all of Matrix. So instead of looking at projects and then tasks, we flip it and we look at people and tasks, right? And so it's a people-centric view. And so if you manage a lot of people, there's no way you're going to click through a bunch of projects just to see the stuff that they're working on. Instead, you go to the one-on-one view and you select them, and then you'll see the tasks you have in common with them. So what that means is these are the tasks that you delegated to them. Or these are the tasks that they delegated to you. And so the one-on-one view gives you that people-centric perspective that I think is very valuable. Lots of people like this view because it really helps with your meetings. It makes you a lot more effective. And so you're able to communicate very clearly with the people you work with. And then not only that, you can actually click Add Share Task and create the task directly from this view. You don't have to open Matrix and go to a certain project and create a task and delegate it and so forth. From the one-on-one view, you can create the task. It automatically assigns to the other person, automatically add you as a follower. All you have to choose is the project it goes in. And then again, you can use the natural language to set the due dates. Okay, so these are the various views in Matrix. That's how you create projects. That's how you manage projects. Now, let me talk about what happens when you use Matrix over time and how you should start your day. When you start your day in Matrix, you go to what's called the home view. The home view tells you everything that requires your attention. So when you go to the home view, you have these things called alerts. Alerts are things that are tasks that are assigned to you, tasks where you assign to other people, but you got an updates, or if you have due dates and reminders that trigger, right? So in this case here, I see 7. So what that means is these are the 7 tasks that requires my attention. I can click on each of these tasks and see exactly what I have to do or what the comment is on that task, and then it goes away and I've cleared all my notifications. So this is where you start your day pretty much. Now, if someone assigns you a task, it actually pops at the top of the list. Or if someone mentions you. So let me show you what mention means. In fact, this is I strongly recommend you learn this feature if you do a lot of delegation. But down here in the conversation, you can click on this plus icon and you can mention a person. So when you mention somebody, what happened is that what they get a special notification that goes to the very top of the list, and that allows you to essentially bring to their attention that they need to take a look at this particular task. Okay, so that's how this mention works right here. And then you have these other panels, views as well, to see the things that are overdue, the things that triggered from the reminder perspective. And then also, if you happen to be a individual contributor, one of the most important things for you to find out is what are the things you actually have to do today or this week. And that's called the agenda. So when you click on agenda here, it shows you all the tasks you have. Now, when you're in the agenda view, you can actually do two things. You can choose item I own. So if you're typically, if you receive a lot of tasks that's delegated to you, that's the view that you want, items you own. If you do a lot of delegation, then you want to choose item you follow, right? So when you assign a task to somebody else, you might want to see it in the agenda to see if they finish it or not, or what's the status on those tasks. And so that's the difference. Essentially, if you're a manager, you want to choose item I follow. If you're an individual contributor and you don't really assign people tasks, then you choose item I own. And then also, again, up here, if you have items that are due this week, Party Matrix will automatically highlight that for you, and you can jump to the agenda view directly from here. Now, the last thing I want to show you is what's called our Microsoft Teams integrations. So if you happen to use Microsoft Teams, a couple of things you should do. You should go to apps here, add Party Matrix, and you pin it. And so if you do that, you have the full Party Matrix application inside Teams. And then what happens is that in the chat here, when you're talking to somebody, you can install Party Matrix, what's called the extension that allows you to send tasks in Party Matrix, but also you can add the one-on-one view directly into a conversation with another person. And so you simply click on plus, choose one-on-one view. And if you do that, you can actually add this one-on-one view here, and you can select the contributor. I'm sorry, select the person that you work with. And now for every Teams conversation that you have, you can see all the tasks you have in common with that person across all of Party Matrix. You don't even have to open Party Matrix to see the task. You don't even have to open any project. Party Matrix does the aggregation for you automatically. And then when you need to assign tasks to each other, you can click on Add Share Task and create a task here. And then not only that, what happens is that you can actually click on any conversation you have with somebody and convert that conversation into a task too. And so, the reason why we do this is because we want to make it easy for you to capture all this information that you have from Outlook, from Teams conversations, from emails, from websites, and so forth. And so leverage Party Matrix, to be that place, that single source of truth, and capture the tasks that you need directly into the system. And Party Matrix also has a chatbot that will send you notifications on the tasks that you need to work on. And then also what you can do is you can actually turn on what's called activities alert in Teams. And so if you use Microsoft Teams, you definitely want to add this option, because then when someone delegate you a task, you'll get a Teams notification that says, hey, someone assigned you a task in Party Matrix. So this is a very useful feature to make sure that you get the proper notifications. And then one other thing that I want you to walk away from today is that you should install Party Matrix in the platforms that you use. So if you go to affluence.com/downloads, you can actually install Party Matrix for Windows, for Mac. And so here I use Party Matrix for web, but Party Matrix exists on pretty much every single platform, mobile, desktop. And then also you have what's called the Microsoft Teams, Edge, and Outlook add-ons that you saw earlier. So here, as an example, I have Party Matrix for Edge. If I'm on a website, I can turn any website into a task simply by clicking on the extension and create a task. And I can choose what project it goes in. Party Matrix will automatically create a task from that website. Very useful if you need to assign someone to read a document. So you could be on SharePoint and you could assign directly from that SharePoint webpage, right? Or if you're on a box link or whatever. And then not only that, I can even select any text on any website, right click, choose Party Matrix, and then save to Party Matrix, and allowing me to turn any text from any website into a task and assign it to people if needed. Okay, with that, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up and go back to our presentation real quick. So what should you do now? First, if you use Microsoft Teams and Outlook, make sure you install Party Matrix for that. If you use Mac or Windows and you want our desktop application, I do recommend those desktop application because it helps keep Party Matrix top of mind for you. Then when it comes to creating projects, make sure that you create a project for your personal priorities. And then when you create tasks, make sure that you set those due dates and reminders. Ask your colleague to also create their own product matrix so then you guys can actually compare notes. Then for you on a personal basis, just set 1 hour each week, either at the beginning of the week or the end of the week, just looking at your product matrix, looking at your priorities and reprioritize them. And then when you have those staff meetings, simply compare notes, compare your product matrix with everyone else so that everyone's on the same page. On a personal level, what success would look like with Matrix is that you're checking Matrix every week to remind yourself your goals, and then you have one central place to track your priorities. At the team level, everyone understands exactly what everyone else is working on, and that you're all aligned on the key task. And then if you have important emails, you're using the Outlook integrations or the Gmail integrations to prioritize those emails and then assigning those emails to people and making sure that it's in the right quadrant with the right due dates. And then lastly, at the team level, you're able to see everyone's priorities in real time asynchronously. And when I say asynchronously, what I really mean is you don't have to have a meeting to be aligned, right? You can open that staff meeting project at any point in time to know what the real-time priorities are across your whole team. And so you can imagine how you can have so many projects in Matrix across so many different initiatives, and you can go into Matrix at any point in time and see exactly what everyone's priorities are, and then you can focus on the priorities that you have and just update them in Matrix, and it gives everyone the updates without having to have a meeting just to talk about it. And then let's recap the checklist that you have. First, make sure that today you install Matrix on the appropriate platform, create your personal and team projects, and review the work that you have, right? That's all you have to do today. Just writing things down, I think, is a valuable first step. Over the next few days, just show your Matrix to your manager, show your Matrix to your coworkers so that they can see your priorities and see if you agree or disagree. Ask them to also share their priorities. Start reprioritizing the task. You can drag and drop it like I showed you earlier, and then check in with your manager to ensure alignment. The magical thing about just having something that's written down and tangible is that it makes communication so much easier. When you have a meeting with your manager and you're showing them your priority matrix and they assign you a task, guess what? You can say, oh yeah, I'd be happy to put this in quadrant 1, but what are we reprioritizing, right? If everything's important and urgent, then nothing is. And so priority matrix makes it possible for you to communicate that to the people that you work with. And then over the next month, hopefully your team is using Matrix to prioritize your team task. And so you can just imagine Matrix being able to go and cascade. You can look at it as sort of like a fractal. And so every project can have the priorities. And what I didn't show you was that you can turn any task into another Matrix. And so now you can actually keep on drilling down, able to see the priorities across the entire organization. Make sure that you create a habit of prioritizing your tasks and emails. I'd strongly recommend using our email integration, mostly because that's where we get the bulk of our task, and that's where we tend to forget the most. Not prioritizing our emails or just forwarding emails and creating all this whole mess of communication. And then lastly, eliminate time waster. So the way you eliminate a time waster is to actively prioritize and then finally realizing, wait a minute, look at all these tasks I have in quadrant 4 or quadrant 3. Let's make sure I start getting rid of them. Make sure I don't spend my time working on them. All right. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions. So feel free to submit the questions in the chat right now, or you can always email me directly to hi@affluence.com.